Hello, everyone in English for Success. We're back. We've had a little bit of a break, but we're back, and I'm here a little early today. I'm going to try to go live here for the podcast every Friday at 12 p.m. so you all know exactly what time I'm going live. But today, I can't do that. I have to go and renew my driver's license. So I'm here a little bit early. At the moment, it's 10 a.m. GMT. That's Greenwich Mean Time. That's the time zone that I'm in here in Dublin at the moment. So if you are watching, come in and say hello. Okay, I'd like to hear from uh, anyone watching live here today. I'd like to get some interaction going. And even if you're watching the replay, you can comment and we'll see your comments and we'll try to respond to them later on as well. So if you're new to the group, very warm welcome to you. This is the English for Success podcast and training group. I am live here every Friday, normally at 12 p.m. GMT, to give you some inspiration and help you on your journey to becoming fluent in English so you can achieve your goals, right? We know that I've said it, I made a post there yesterday on Facebook that this is an amazing time we're living in the world where the only barriers are the ones we create ourselves, right? People all over the world are taking advantage of how easy it is to connect at the moment, how easy it is to spread your message. So I'm sure you realize that it's more important now than ever to be able to communicate effectively in English. And I'm here today to share an idea with you and to talk about the power of stories. Maybe you think that telling stories is something for children. Did you listen to stories? Did you read stories? Or did your parents tell you stories as a child? Do you believe that stories are only for children? Well, I hope not, because I'm here today to explain to you and to remind you that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to communicate in any language. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit here today. We're going to talk about how you can master the art of storytelling to improve your communication skills and reach people on a far deeper and more meaningful level. Sound good? Okay, so click like on this video if you're watching here live. That will let everybody else in the community know. And that reminds me, I want to try something here today. I don't know if you guys know, but there is something I never knew before, that you can comment, you can tag everyone in a group by saying @everyone. So I'm going to try that now and see if everyone gets tagged here. Not working for me now. Let's try again. @everyone. @everyone. Is that going to? No. Let me try one more time. We have some people liking the video. Thank you very much, Patty. Thank you very much for liking the video. We're trying to get everyone's attention here. Everyone, it won't let me do this. If anyone is watching, or if anyone on my team is watching, maybe you can help me to do this. It's not allowing me to tag @everyone here. No, maybe in the description. I can edit the description. Yes, I can. Okay, just give me 1 minute. I want to try. I've been wanting to play with this for a while. So I'm tagging @everyone here. Let's see if it works. All right. So maybe that will notify everyone in the group. I don't think it will. If you know how to do that @everyone to notify everyone in a group, let us know. So back to our topic here today, storytelling. Let me share my screen here and let's get started. This is a good one. This is really important. Okay, so we're talking about the power of story. And as I said before, maybe you think that this is something for children, but it's definitely not. This is how you can reach people's hearts and minds, by telling a story. You know, have you ever, what's your response when someone calls you and says, "Hey, I want to tell you a story"? Your brain is activated. You're ready to listen to them, right? So this is it. Our brains are wired to listen to stories. This is how we've passed on information for throughout history, right? And to give you an example, I'm going to talk a little bit about this man here. His name is Ryan Stevenson. And Brian Stevenson, not Ryan Stevenson. Brian Stevenson, he did the most successful, he delivered possibly the most successful TED Talk of all time. It got the longest standing ovation, and it was voted the most persuasive TED Talk. And you see on the screen here, I have 65%. Can you guess what that 65% represents? 65%, he used 65% of his time telling stories, right? You know, TED Talks are there for people to influence, to persuade, to teach. So you would think there's a lot of information there. But Brian used 65% of his time, his words. This was analyzed, 65% telling stories. And this wasn't by chance. This was very deliberate, right? And the reason he did this is because people connect. Brain scans have shown us that people connect, right? People are stimulated by stories, and they will tend to agree with your point of view when you tell stories as well, right? So this is why his TED Talk was so successful. We can also use stories to break down walls. All right. So between the listener, if you're presenting in English, presenting in front of people, then you can make a connection. You can break down those walls by telling stories, by telling personal stories, right? And Brian Stevenson used the first third of his talk to tell a story. And he had everyone's attention. Everybody was listening to him. Everybody was ready. All right. So this is essential. I hope you understand at this stage. And the fact is that successful people and brands, you may know this brand here, I don't have to say the name, I know you know it already, they use emotional and genuine stories to connect with people, connect with their audience in far deeper and more meaningful ways. You know, there's a power in pathos. Do you know what pathos means? If anyone knows, if anyone's watching here, you know what pathos means, write it down in the comments. Okay, what is pathos? It's actually not an English word. It didn't come from the English language. So let's see who's watching here now. What is pathos? Take a guess, right? Even if you don't know, take a guess and tell us what you think pathos is. This comes from one of the founding fathers of of communication theory. You may have heard of the name Aristotle. All right. He taught us a very long time ago that for effective communication and for persuasion to take place, there must be 3 elements. All right. And pathos is one of these elements. Okay, I'm still waiting. If anyone knows what is pathos, type it into the comments. Okay, what do you think pathos means? There are 3 elements that must be present for effective persuasion or communication to take place. Pathos, logos, and ethos. Okay, they're the 3. So the first one, let's leave pathos to the end to see if anyone can comment here and tell us what pathos is. Let's start with ethos. 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 Ethos is credibility. We agree with people. We tend to agree with people who we respect. People we respect for their title, their experience, their position. So this is ethos, okay? Credibility for people who have respect, maybe an expert, okay? That's the first way we can be persuaded, if we're listening to something that an expert is talking about. Number two, logos. Logos refers to logic, information. All right. Obviously, if you want to connect with someone, if you want to explain something, you have to give that information. And thirdly, I don't believe we have any comments yet. Thirdly is pathos. All right. And you saw this slide here. The power, there is power in pathos. And this is perhaps the most neglected one of the three. When you want to persuade someone or communicate your idea to someone, I bet you're focusing on probably logos, probably the information. But the fact is that we cannot be persuaded by information alone. We need this pathos, and pathos comes, it refers to emotion, feeling, and one of the best ways to evoke feelings and emotions in people is by telling stories, right? Again, back to this TED talk, they analyzed his words, and I told you already 65% of his words, of his time, was used for telling stories. 25%, only 25% was the information, the logos, okay? And 10% came from him establishing himself as an expert, okay? So it's huge. Storytelling is huge, okay? You cannot be persuaded by data alone. You cannot persuade people to, you cannot explain your idea and have people responsive by only giving the information. The best way to do it is wrap it in a story. And that's what we're talking about here today. That's what I'm doing with my students this week in the program. And it all comes down, research has been done that the brains of the speaker and the listener synchronize when stories are being told. What a powerful tool to use. And it's something that we enjoy as well, right? So the fact is that, you're telling stories in life every day. We're all telling stories. If it's a business, if it's a business presentation, you're telling the story of your brand, right? If it's a marketing campaign, you're telling the story of your idea. If it's a job interview, you're telling the story of yourself, your personal brand, right? So we're all telling stories every day. And if you're not, it's time to start. It's time to become a storyteller. And as I said, this is an enjoyable thing to do. And I hope you realize at this stage how important it is. So start telling stories today to achieve your goals. There are a few things you need to master to become an effective storyteller. And the first thing is talking about the past. Do any of you know, watching here, how many different ways we have to talk about the past? How many tenses are there? How many past tenses are there? Now, this brings me on to another point about studying grammar. People are asking me all of the time, I need to improve my grammar. And this is actually something that is holding people back, strangely enough, okay? A lot of people don't realize that there are 3 phases to becoming fluent and confident communicating in a language, right? The first is understanding. Think of the baby, right? I say this all the time. The baby gets a lot of input. Then after that, starts to say some words. And finally, communication can take place. And they're the 3 phases, okay? So understanding, expressing yourself, communicating effectively. Most people are stuck at the understanding level. And most people are studying the language like it's a subject. But English needs to be used to connect with people, to express your ideas. Okay, so when you think of grammar, what I suggest to you now is you flip it, right? a lot of people, and in schools, people are studying the grammar first, and maybe eventually they get to communicating or speaking. I believe that you should be speaking. All of you need to be speaking today. You need to be getting the speaking communication practice. And in that practice, then you can refer to the grammar. Okay? So grammar is, yes, it's important. Improving your grammar, improving your vocabulary are important, but that's not where you should focus. You should focus on the actual communication. All right? Then use the grammar to support what you're saying. And in telling stories, it's important that you're speaking correctly and using the past tenses. We have 4 past tenses in English. We have the past simple, the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. So most people watching this probably have a good foundation in English, and you probably recognize these tenses. But let's do a little test here now as you're watching with me. You know who this man is? Steve Jobs, right? And he says the only way to do great work is to do what you love. Fantastic quote. I agree with this 100%. Follow your passion. All right. So if we want to refer to the grammar, then we do it in the context, in real context. Let's say the context, for example, of Steve Jobs' story. So what I do with my students is we talk about his story, and obviously it's all in the past because he's passed away. And we can analyze how effectively you can talk about Steve Jobs or talk about a famous person. Are you using these tenses correctly? So let's jump a little bit to the past perfect, an area where a lot of people are making mistakes that I see. They understand the past perfect, but they're not using it effectively when they're communicating. So first of all, the first thing you need to understand is, what does perfect mean in the context of tenses? Perfect means before, right? Past perfect, present perfect, future perfect, they all talk about before. So the past perfect means before some specific time in the past, okay? Activities finished before a certain time in the past. So we can use this to talk about Steve Jobs, for example. I know that his mother taught him to read before he started school. Okay, this is a well-known fact about Steve Jobs. So when he got to school, he was already able to read. So how can we, if we want to express this accurately in English, how can we do it? Well, we can use the example here in this sentence. He blank blank start reading before he went to school. Can we use the past perfect here? Well, yes, this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about something that finished before another time in the past. All right. What is it? He had started. That's the past perfect using had. Okay. Quite simple, quite basic. But the main thing you need to remember is before another time in the past. English is quite complicated when we speak about time, tense, and it's very clear, right? It's very clear what when you use tenses correctly, it's very clear what your meaning is. Then quickly, let's just talk about another one that's commonly misused or not used at all, really, is the past perfect continuous. Okay, and continuous in English usually focuses on duration, how long something was happening, or if we want to explain that something was happening for quite some time. Perfect means before. So you can see in the diagram here, we're talking about something that had been happening up to a certain point in the past. Okay, activities that continued up to a certain point in the past. So talking about Steve Jobs, perhaps you know that he was actually fired from Apple at one stage. And he went working in another company, and he spent quite some time working on his creativity during this period in his life. And then when he came back to Apple, he brought this new energy to the company. And he was harnessing his creativity here. So this is a perfect example where we can use the past perfect continuous, okay? Something that was continuing for some time before another time in the past. So before he returned to Apple, we can use the past perfect continuous here, okay, for working on his creativity. You know, the continuous uses ing, the past perfect uses had, right? So we have had been working. He had been working on his creativity for quite some time before he came back to Apple. Okay, that's a brief chat about how we can speak accurately and how we have to master all of these past tenses if we want to be effective storytellers. Another thing that we do with our clients, our students in the program, we did this yesterday. A great way to practice using the past tenses. You see, you don't just study the grammar. That's what I'm here to highlight to you today, okay? Studying the grammar alone is not going to help you to use it when you're communicating, okay? You have to take those rules, those structures we just talked about, and then take them to communication practice, okay? This is the step that most people are missing, right? If I ask people, often I ask people, how do you use the past? What is the past simple? What is the past continuous? They can give me the grammar, they can explain the definition, but when they're speaking, they're not using it. So what we do in the program is this is one of the ways we do it. We have a murder mystery game like Cluedo. The different students take on different characters and they have to interview each other to discover what happened in the past, right? One of the characters was found dead, okay? And we have to interview everyone in the party, right? Where it's a role play. So everyone who was in this house, we have to interview them to find out how they knew the person who died, what was their connection, what were they doing before his body was found, what were they doing. So we have to use all of these past tenses in real communication practice. Okay, so that's it. That's the key here, is what I want to share with you. Yes, understand the grammar, understand the structure, understand things like tenses, but more importantly, you have to practice using them in communication. Remember, understand, express, communicate, the 3 phases for being able to communicate with confidence. Other tools we may come in useful for telling stories are things like sequencers. Okay, sequencers are how we link our ideas together. So if you want to tell a good story, you have to be able to link those parts of the story together. And sequencers are words, phrases, adverbs, things like that, that help you link the ideas together, link the parts of the story together and put them in order. Words like, or phrases like, to start off with, suddenly, eventually. Okay, so you need to arm yourself with a list of a collection, a chunk of language, right? A variety of different ways to sequence your story and tie the ideas together. And again, don't just learn these words out of context. They won't become part of your active language. You need to use them when you're communicating with people. Okay, how can you use these sequencers? Tell stories. Practice telling stories. Okay, it's prepare your stories, or if you don't want to prepare them, I would advise preparing them first. Practice using these tenses, practice using these sequencers, but most importantly is get the experience telling these stories. And that's it. All right. Next week in the program, we have a storytelling workshop. And this is where all the different people get to tell their stories and use all of the different tools, the different parts of the language that they have been practicing, and put them all together in telling effective stories. I hope at this stage you understand the importance of connecting with people on a much deeper level and the power of story for communicating. Different types of stories. Well, there are 3 simple and effective stories that we cover inside the program and that I encourage you to to use in your communication with other people. And the first type is personal stories, right? Everybody loves a personal story. These are very effective for connecting, for breaking down those walls I spoke about at the start of this video. Okay, tell a personal story. Secondly, we can talk about someone else who has experience, who has learned a lesson, right? I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories of people who've learned a lesson in life or in business. Okay, so the experience of other people who have learned a lesson. And then finally, stories about the success or the failure of someone. It could be a famous person, could be a brand, could be a business. Stories about success or failure. These are the three most effective and simple types of stories that you can tell to get your idea across, connect with people, and communicate on a far more meaningful and deeper level. And that is the power of storytelling. That's why I'm here today, to remind you all about this beautiful art of storytelling and remind you to take it, bring it into your lifestyle, and start using it. You're here because you want to become a fluent, a confident English speaker, right? Becoming a great speaker of another language is also about your communication skills, okay? You need to be thinking of things like this. It's not only the grammar. It's not a subject that you need to study. It's an art form, that it's a language that you use to connect with people and express your ideas. And storytelling is one of the best ways you can do that. If you'd like to apply to join the full program where we're working on these amazing topics, the most important topics you need to communicate effectively, we're working on a different topic every 2 weeks inside the program. The goal is to help you speak English like a pro in 6 months. If you want to learn more about this, or if you have any questions and you'd like some clarity, you'd like to figure out why you're not reaching this goal, then you can reach out to me. You can comment below this video, comment action, right? I only want to talk to people who are action takers. If English is a hobby for you, just like, you do a little bit here and there, it's only a hobby, don't comment on this video, okay? If you are ready to take action, if this is an important goal for you, if you need to be able to communicate with people effectively to achieve your goals, comment action below this video, or you can even send me a message directly. We are opening up our clarity calls again, so we accept 16. We have a maximum of 16 clarity calls we do a month, okay? And this is exclusively for people who are here inside the Facebook community, English for Success, podcast and training. And if you would like to book, it's a 10-minute call. I'll ask you some questions and I'll help you find out what's stopping you from reaching this goal. No strings attached, no pressure to buy the full program. But if you're interested in joining the full program, this is also your first step. We would have this first 10-minute conversation. And if we both feel like we want to work together to help you reach this goal in the next 6 months, then we can book a second call and speak about those details of exactly how we can get you started. Okay, so comment action or reach out to me and we can have a chat, personal chat. I'll help you see how you can reach this goal and speak English with confidence. That's it for today, everybody. Have a great weekend. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can get active in the comments. And I will be here next Friday. And maybe before then, I have a couple of things I want to share with you all. I may post some other things in the group before then. But English for Success podcast every Friday, 12 p.m. GMT. See you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good luck.